questions and let's recapture what we have done in our last lecture. Can someone please tell me that what is colonialism and then what is post-colonial literature?
मैम पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर वही होता है जिसमें जो इफेक्ट होते हैं उनको डिस्कस करते हैं, जो कॉलोनियलिज्म अपना इफेक्ट छोड़ देता है। और कॉलोनियलिज्म वही होता है जो कोई अदर कंट्री जो पावरफुल होता है वो सप्रेस करता है माइनर कंट्रीज को, तो वही कॉलोनियलिज्म होता है।
Very good, excellent, Shari. Anyone else? What is post-colonial literature? Whatever Shari has talked about, she has defined colonialism. So in the light of that definition, can someone please tell me what is post-colonial literature?
मैम
Yes, please, Shari.
मैम पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर वही होता है जो कि शुरू हुआ था 1947 के बाद, जो ऑलमोस्ट जो कॉलोनियलिज्म था उसने जो इफेक्ट छोड़ा था, और उसी के बाद एक लिटरेचर आया था जो कॉलोनियलिज्म को डिस्कस करते थे, तो उसी में पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर का बर्थ हुआ था उधर से।
Okay, good. Any other response, girls? Very good.
Any text or talk which talks about the effect or influence of colonialism is known
Very
as the
good.
post-colonial literature.
That's very good. That's an excellent definition, because this is the definition which is also discussed by Robert Young. Robert Young is a writer and a critic of post-colonial literature, and he gives the excellent definition of post-colonialism. And according to him, post-colonialism or post-colonial literature is that literature which talks about the not only the aftermath or after effects of colonialism, rather even about the present time, about the neo-colonial time which we are having these days. Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we know the word post doesn't mean after in here. Okay. In this term of post-colonialism, the word post doesn't mean that colonialism has finished. We know that most of the countries, the powerful countries, are still in the world, are governing or having control over the weaker countries. We have many examples. So, of course, they are the colonies. The weak countries are the colonies of those powerful countries which are interfering there, influencing them, and even they are physically present there. Can you please give me an example of any such country which is a colony or which has been a colony?
India, Ghana, and mostly the African countries.
Okay, very good. But these were the old ones, right? Can you just in the neighborhood of Pakistan, right? We had a country which almost became a colony of United States of America.
Afghanistan?
Very
Afghanistan?
good. Yes, very good. Okay. So that is like we do have like post means something that is after. So in here, the word post doesn't mean after. It means that any literature, any work, any book that talks about the process of colonialism is included in post-colonialism. Okay. I hope now you understand the idea of post-colonialism. Is it clear to you, girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have also discussed some terms of colonialism and post-colonial theory. That was Orient and Occident. Did we discuss Orient and Occident in our last lecture? Anyone, please? Did we discuss the concept of Orient and Occident? Okay, let me just give you the example or a little introduction of some of the post-colonial terms, and then we will discuss a small place. Post-colonial theory is a very vast theory, and it has many characteristics, or you can say themes, or we can also call them terms, right? So one of the most important term is Orient. Now, the word Orient is the definition, or the word Orient is used by a Muslim philosopher, Edward Said. And Edward Said is very, very much prominent in post-colonial theory. He has a very valuable place in post-colonial studies, okay? His book, Orientalism, is very much famous. And in his book, Orientalism, in fact, he has given the idea of Orient. Now, what is an Orient? According to him, the idea or the representation of Middle East and Asia in the Western books is wrong. Okay. Why? Because what kind of idea do they represent, the Western writers, in their books about the East? Is that they are sensual? Okay. Is that they are uncivilized? They are barbaric? So they are the Orients. Is it clear? According to Edward
Yes.
Said, the representation is not a real or true representation. It is a misrepresentation. Okay. It is some of the writers, they have not even gone there. Okay. Whatever they have written, they just get the idea from someone else. Some of the writers, they have really traveled there, they have seen the place, but whatever they have represented is a misrepresentation. Okay. So East is not that much barbaric, that much sensuous, that much materialistic as the Western world shows it. And why does the Western world shows East someone as sensuous? Because West wants to show himself or define himself as superior. Okay. So if East is Orient, then the opposite of Orient is Occident, and that is the West. Is it clear, girls? So the superior one is West, which is Occident, and the inferior one is East, which is Orient, according to Edward Said, and that is the inferior one. And who is defining that which one is superior and which one is inferior? It is the Western writers, okay? Because they are the one who represent this picture of East to the West. Okay, because every person, every individual from the West has not seen the East. How do they see them? They see them through the representations. Which representations? The representations which are reflected in literature, the representations which are reflected in different, on media, like in movies, in films. You have seen Aladdin, right? And many other movies. Even any movie we see, a villain is an Arab, okay? Or Arabs are barbaric, okay? And also that Arabs are after money, and Arabs, most importantly, Arabs are after women. So this is a very common stereotype picture or representation of the Arab world, which is shown by the Western media and Western literature. That is how they have defined Orient, okay? That is how they have defined this part of the world, which according to them is uncivilized. So they have this mission to civilize them. As we have seen, that white man's burden, you remember, if you remember that poem, how it was a burden for the white man to civilize or educate the Orient, or you can say the East. So these are two very much significant terms: Orientalism, Orient or Occident. And these are coming from which writer? From Edward Said. And he has discussed these in his book, Orientalism. Now I'm going to move forward to another term that is called, this is also a post-colonial term. It is hegemony. Have you ever heard this word hegemony? Anyone from the class, please?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think? What is the meaning of, not in post-colonial terms, but what is hegemony?
मैम जबरदस्ती किसी जगह पे वो मतलब वो क्या करते हैं, कब्जा करते हैं और अपने टर्म्स उन पे अप्लाई करते हैं, जैसा कि अपना कल्चर और अपने वैल्यूज.
Very good. Okay, but it is, hegemony is not by force. Hegemony means by the consent of those people, by the willingness of those people. Some customs, okay, custom, language, way of life, or even some physical rule is exercised over a group of people or over an individual with his own consent. ठीक है, उसकी मर्जी होती है उसमें. It is not like, let me give you an example of that. Like even today, or we have adopted English language. Do you think colonizers are there and they by force are, forcefully they are asking us to adopt their language, to adopt their education system or their way of life or their dress code? No, they are not there. We, with our own consent, we adopt their culture, we adopt their language. It is our own consent, it is our own willingness, because within our heart we do understand, or we have made an opinion that they are superior and we are inferior. If not inferior, but they are somehow superior. Is it clear? So hegemony, simply the idea of hegemony is coming from Antonio Gramsci. Okay, he has given this idea, and simply the concept of hegemony is rule over people with their own consent. Is it clear, girls? Someone is subjugated, but not subjugated by force, but subjugated by his own consent, by his own willingness. Is it clear to you? Is hegemony
Yes.
clear to all of you? Not only Shari is participating
Yes,
and
ma'am.
answering me. What about the others?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Ma'am, it is
fine.
basically the idea. It is basically the idea that people knowingly or unknowingly being colonized.
Very good. Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Now I'm going to give you another idea of post-colonialism, that is hybridity. Do you know the meaning of hybridity? Even in common language, we use the word hybrid.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is
May I?
hybridity? Yes, please.
Ma'am,
Shari?
mixing of two culture.
Yes, amalgamation of two different ideas, two different cultures. Okay, the main idea of hybridity has come from Homi Bhabha. Homi Bhabha is an Indian writer, and he also has a very significant place in post-colonial theory. And he basically has given this idea of hybridity. Now, what is hybridity? It is the amalgamation of two cultures. And in terms of post-colonialism, Laiba, please turn off your cam and mute, put it on mute. Okay, now hybridity according to Bhabha is when there are two cultures and one culture adopts the other culture. And of course, it's a very natural process. Even if we do not want to adopt, we do adopt like naturally. When there are two different cultures, one culture adopts the other culture. But both these culture, one having the superior position and other having the inferior position, is not a good idea or not a justified idea. Okay, so what happens in post-colonial theory, that when there are hybrid identities of post-colonial individuals, they are the one who is from East, okay, or from any colonized native region, his hybrid character is having an identity crisis. Why identity crisis? Because what is his own and original, he doesn't feel good about that. And what he has adopted, okay, because it was what he has adopted, that's the European culture, and the Europeans, they wanted the native to adopt their culture. But at the same time, anyone who has adopted their culture, any individual, completely and perfectly, they will not even give that person an equal position in their society. Is it clear? Like, even if you become complete European, you are not going to be their equal. Even then, this hierarchy of superior and inferior, us and them, okay, is there. We as superior, you as inferior, was still there. Okay, so many critics and writers, they have written against that. Okay, most of the native writers, when someone, like, it is just, I gave you an example that day, someone comes to your home, and that someone then tells you that he comes to your home as a guest, and then later on, after 1, 2, or 3 days, he takes the controlling position at your place or at your home. So do you think that it is something justified, or it's a good act? Of course, no one will appreciate that. This is what has happened in the practice of colonialism. So whosoever were natives, they stood against that. there was resistance. People raised their voice, okay? And that whosoever has raised their voice, whosoever has written about that, whosoever has talked about that comes under the category of post-colonial literature. And one such piece and one such writer is Jamaica Kincaid, and she has written A Small Place. She was basically from Antigua, and when we will read this essay, then we will come to know what colonialism has done to these people, what kind of destructive aftermath or after effects were there of colonialism, and how these people, they used to hate their colonizers. Okay, and once we read that, we are also a colonized, we used to be a colonized nation, not us, but our grandparents, right? So we will try to compare Indian subcontinent and then Antigua, where Jamaica Kincaid has lived, both these regions together, that what type of colonialism was there and what type of colonialism was here in our region, and what were the after effects. Was colonialism a good practice or not? Okay, keeping these questions in our mind, we are going to discuss now A Small Place, which is written by Jamaica Kincaid. Okay, girls? Yes, should we go ahead to Small Place?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So Jamaica Kincaid says the Antigua, it is page number 92, and I have also shared my screen with you. I hope you can see that. Is my
Yes,
screen
ma'am.
shared with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A Small Place, which is written by an Antiguan writer, Jamaica Kincaid. And she says, the Antigua that I knew, the Antigua in which I grew up, is not the Antigua you, a tourist, would see now. That Antigua no longer exists. That Antigua no longer exists partly for the usual reason, the passing of time, and partly because the bad-minded people who used to rule over it, the English, no longer do so. Okay, so she says this Antigua, if you want to come to Antigua as a tourist, you will not see the Antigua, the original Antigua. Why will you not see? There are two reasons. Because one is that time has passed, okay? When time passes, things get changed. But secondly, the major reason is that which has changed the shape or picture or face of Antigua, because it was ruled by the bad-minded people. And who were those bad-minded people? The English people. Okay, she's saying they no longer now rule our Antigua, but they have just misshaped and they have destructed the face of Antigua. So she says, but the English have become such a pitiful lot these days, with hardly any idea what to do with themselves now, that they no longer have 1/4 of the earth's human population bowing and scrapping before them. Now, remember, whenever we talk about post-colonial literature, we talk about the colonialism that was there after capitalism, that is half of 18th century, 19th century, and the 20th century. Now, she is referring to 19th and 20th century, that half of the world they have colonized. Who? The English people. And they have put half of the human population bowing before them as if they are the gods. Okay. And then she says, they do not seem to know that this empire business was all wrong, and they should at least be wearing sackcloth and ashes in token penance of the wrongs committed, the irrevocableness of their bad deeds, for no natural disaster imaginable could equal the harm they did. Please underline these lines. These are very, very much important. She is saying whatever they have done was all wrong. This all colonial business was a wrong thing. And she is saying that no natural disaster imaginable could equal the harm they did. What happens when there are natural disasters? What are the natural disasters? Natural disasters are like earthquakes, like floods, okay? So what happens when there are earthquakes or floods? There is bloodshed, there are deaths, there is destruction, there is harm. And she is saying no natural disaster is equal to the harm what colonizers have done to the natives or to the colonized people. Okay, and then she says, actual death might have been better. So what is death? When if someone dies, the chapter of that person's life closes. But she's saying actual death is better than this death the colonized or the native people have gone through. Why is she saying so? Anyone from the class? Why is she saying even death is better than to be colonized by someone? And not by someone, by the
Ma'am,
English
because of
people.
the brutality.
Yes, because of the
Ma'am,
brutality.
because of the brutality.
Yes, not only brutality, you know.
This is worse than death.
Yes, exactly. And then also, what did these colonizers do, you know? They snatched
Ma'am?
their language. Yes, please.
मैम इनको शायद बहुत बुरे तरीके से मार दिया जाता था क्योंकि ये लोग कह रहे कि अल्लाह की तरफ से जो नेचुरल डेथ है वो ज्यादा बेहतर है एज कम्पेयर टू जो ये लोग जिन तरीके से इनको मारते थे तो शायद
Okay,
ये रीजन है
very good. If I'm not wrong, you're
मैम
Laiba.
यानी कि द लाइफ ऑफ
Yes,
स्लेवरी यानी किस तरह से वो गुलामी की
Sharif.
जिंदगी गुजारा है
Okay, very good. Fine. Okay. Now, you know why is she saying so? One thing you need to, all these responses are somehow correct. But one thing you need to just keep in your mind that why are they against it? Why all these writers are against the exercise of colonialism, okay? One thing, they snatched the native language and they imposed their language on them, okay? Like some of the writers, they say that anyone who used to speak their own native language in the school, this is written by Franz Fanon, okay? The essay we will also study in future. So he just quotes a story that when I was a kid, I used to be in the school, the colonizer school, okay? And we were a colonized nation. So we used to go to school and the punishment, it was a severe punishment for the person and the student who used to even speak a single word of their own native language. So what was the punishment? They used to write, I am a donkey on a slate and put it in the neck as a necklace of that little small individual and ask him to roam around in the whole town with the same slate, wearing the same slate. Now you see what kind of humiliation is that too for a little kid. Like calling yourself, I'm a donkey, because what did I do? What crime did I commit that I have talked one word or two words of my own native language? And one thing, another thing is also that they were not very much good at English language, because now we are the third generation who are in contact with the colonizers, right? At that time, the colonizers just came there. There was no media, no nothing, right? So they were not good at their language. Learning another language was very much difficult for them. And of course, we know that what kind of affiliation do we have with our own language, right? Language is a complete part of identity. Is it clear or not? So they just snatched their language. How did they snatch their language? That they imposed English language on them. Fine. Secondly, they asked them, like there are some they have also, you know, colonized the Latin Americas. Now the Latin American, the native people, how were they? Maybe you know about these red Indians. Even the men, they have big hairs like female, okay? So they asked them to shave their heads, okay? By telling them that these big hairs, having big ears for men is not a good thing. So hair is a part of your body. Shaving that, when you think that for them, for the Latin American or the Red Indians, their hair was something which were sacred for them. Asking them to shave their heads was something like snatching a part of their identity from them. Okay. And then they have also took away their religion. Okay. By making them feel that your religion is inferior and our religion is the superior religion. So just leave your religion and embrace our religion. Okay, so these are the things. Like I can give you another example of the Latin American, the Red Indians. For them, nature was religion. Okay, they used to believe in nature as their god. So what did they do? They just, there were a lot of treaties that they are not going to cut their forests, but they cut all their forests. Now, Native Americans were having a harmony with nature, and they used to deal with nature, the trees, the forest as their gods. Now, when their forests are cut, you can just relate with them that what type of feelings were they going through, as if their identities are crushed. So whatever literature now we have of those people, we find that they are having identity crisis. They are hybrid identities and not happy hybrid identities. Rather, they are having identity crisis. That is why Jamaica Kincaid is saying that actual death is better than this death, that you are with no identity. You are left with nothing of your own. Whatever you have adopted it, and that is imposed on you. You are not adopting it with your own willingness, but because you are scared of them, but because this thought is imposed on you that they are superior and you are inferior. Your language is inferior. So you have to you have to just adopt to that language just to be in those people who are the superior class of the society. So that is why she's saying actual death might have been better. And then she says, and so all this fuss over empire. What went wrong here? What went wrong there always makes me quite crazy. For I can say to them what went wrong. They should never have left their home, their precious England. Now she's saying this all colony thing was a very wrong thing. These English people should not have left their place, their England, which is a precious England, a place they loved so much, a place they had to leave but could never forget. So they say, she's saying that these English people, when they were making colonies to different part of the world, they should not have left their own place, their own England, because they loved England so much that everywhere they have gone, they turned that place into England. Let's suppose if they have come to this Indian subcontinent, they turned the whole Indian subcontinent into a part of England. Like she is saying, and so everywhere they went, they turned into England, and everybody they met, they turned English. So this is again very, very much ironical. And these phrases are just, you can say that these phrases are full of sadness and gloominess. When she's saying that wherever they went, they did not leave even a little portion of the originality of that place. And any person they met, they just snatched the complete identity of that person and imposed the English identity on them. And even then, they did not give, even with that adopted English identity, they did not give a superior position to that person in their society. Okay, is it clear, girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you watched any such movie which is about colonialism? Because India has made a lot of such movies.
Yes, ma'am, the 12-year-old slavery.
Okay, the 12 years of slavery. Good. Okay, let me just...
And
Yes, please.
and Django, mostly the
Okay.
black people's one.
Okay, very good. Okay, let me just give you an example from Amitav Ghosh. Amitav Ghosh is an Indian writer, and he has written a novel that is Sea of Poppies. It is a post-colonial novel. In that novel, it shows about the Indian life, right? That the colonizers are there, and then there is the poor class, okay? And then there is the elite class of Hindus and Muslims, and then there is the elite class of Hindus and Muslims. Poor class, we know that they are suffering a lot all the time. Now, let me tell you something about the elite class, the ones who try to be like English people. Like Jamaica Kincaid is saying here that everybody they met, they turned English. Now, for this, I'm giving you an example that how the people who wanted who completely adopted the Englishness. Even then, they were not welcomed. Now, there was a Raja. His name was Neil. This is the story I'm telling you from Sea of Poppies, which is written by Amitav Ghosh. So he talks about a Raja whose name was Neil. Neil was a Raja of his place, and like he was a friend of these Europeans, okay? A friend, he thought that they respect me. And this Raja Neil, he studied, he got all his education from England. So he knew all their books, he knew their language, he was even dressed in their attire, okay, the English dress. Now, what happened that on every party they used to ask him that give us a gift, the English people, and snatch a little piece of land from him. Okay, so in this way they have taken a lot of Neil's property. So one day there was a party on a ship which was arranged by Raja Neil. So in that party, they asked about a specific property that we want, that the English people, okay? And Raja Neil refused. Only that refusal, you know what happened, that the next very day, they just attacked, the police attacked their house, Raja Neil's house. And remember, he's a Raja, okay? And the police came, they handcuffed him. Now you remember a person who is the Raja of the tribe, and the police is there and he's handcuffed and going to the prison. What kind of insult is it is for him? And for what crime? That he has forged the signature of someone, which he did not do at all. They just imposed this thing on him, and they just, imprisoned him for a crime which was not even committed by Raja Neil. So simple is that. Everyone they met, they turned into an English one, but they did not even accept the superiority of that English person. Is it clear, girls? Is it clear,
Yes,
girls? Okay, now let's move forward. I hope you understand the story of Raja Neil. I
Yes,
narrated
ma'am.
it because he was from the elite class, and those elites which were very deliberately created by these English people, that even if we leave their region, these colonizers, the idea behind this was that even if we leave the colonized region, there are some people among the natives who are like us, and they will then continue what we are doing with them. Okay, they will then play the part or perform the part of an Englishman. Like I told you that day, Macaulay says, brown in blood but English in manners. Okay, I hope you are getting this, girls. Is it clear
yes,
to you,
ma'am.
to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
And then he says, but no place could ever really be England. And then she says, but no place could ever really be England, and nobody who did not look exactly like them would ever be English. So you can imagine the destruction of people and land that came from that. Then she's saying, wherever they have gone, they tried their level best to just convert them into that place into England and those people into English, but no one can be English, okay? Those people, that place cannot be England. Can Indian subcontinent be England? Not at all. And can these all people, we or the Indians, be English? Not at all. So she says, then you can imagine the destruction, because people tried to adopt them. They could not adopt them. So what happened? There was identity crisis. People suffered a lot. They felt inferiority complex. And then there we will come to know that what type of inferiority was there. Frantz Fanon is another writer. He has written even a book on that. That people, Frantz Fanon was a psychiatrist and psychologist as well, okay? So he even talks about the medical terms, those medical terms, that how he has taken many case studies, that how the Africans suffered from identity crisis, okay? So this is a type of destruction which has happened with the native people. And then she says the English hate each other. Now she's saying the English hate each other and they hate England. And the reason they are so miserable now is that they have no place else to go and nobody else to feel better than. But let me show you the Antigua that I used to know. Now, she is in the start of this essay, she told you that this Antigua is not the original Antigua. Now, she's going to tell us about the original Antigua, okay? So she says, in the Antigua that I knew, we lived on a street named after an English maritime criminal, Horatio Nelson. And all the other streets around us were named after some other English maritime criminals. Now, this is such a pity. She's saying that in my Antigua, when the colonizers came, they named our street after their criminals.